The Raiders have a new starting quarterback. The Steelers have two. Something's got to give. We'll break it down on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, Crossover Thursday, Raiders-Steelers, for today, October 10th, 2024.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts to get the latest edition of the show as soon as it becomes available. And as always, if you're checking us out on YouTube, you know we appreciate that. The show continues to grow each and every day, and that's because of your support and because of the job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we're looking good and sounding good. Appreciate him. Gets us up on YouTube each and every day. You can shout him out. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well, as many of you do, at your boy Q254. And, of course, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. No calls or texts today. As you know, it's Thursday. It's Crossover Thursday, where we start to compare and contrast the next team on the schedule for the Silver and Black. This week, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers as they make their way to Allegiant Stadium coming up on Sunday. My guy, my brother, Chris Carter, host of Locked On Steelers, myself and him, we talk all things Steelers and Raiders. We talk about Davante Adams. We talk about the quarterbacks, Aiden O'Connell, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. We talk about all those guys, and we'll talk about the lengthy injury report for both teams and how they can affect the game coming up on Sunday. That's all coming up in today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. We'll jump right into segment number one after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Prize Picks. Download the app, use the code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. I'll tell you more about them later on in the show, but it's that time to shine. We'll jump into segment number one here in part one of our conversation, where Chris Carter and myself talk all things Davante Adams and the potential of a trade, as the Pittsburgh Steelers are a team that is reported and rumored to be interested in the star wide receivers. So we had to kind of, do our own little twist to Crossover Thursday, add our own little flavor to it. So all things Davante Adams here in segment number one. So let's go ahead and jump in to part one of our conversation, Crossover Thursday style.
Q, we're back, baby. This is awesome. For those who might not know, the uninitiated, the two of us were used to be the Friday. At one point, we were the Tuesday hosts too. But we were hosts on Locked On NFL for years on this network. And then this is Mr. Big Time over here. You see the ESPN on his jacket. He's too official now. He's working with Greeny over there and stuff. But I'm so happy to get to work with my man Q.
Yeah, this is good, man. This is good. It's glad to be back, man. It's always been fun doing shows with you, whether we were talking Raiders, Steelers, NFL in general, or just shooting the bull, man. It's always been good. So I know that this is going to be a fun one, man. One of the ones I had circled on the schedule as soon as it came out. So glad to be here with you, my man.
Same here. I'm looking forward to partying up with you at the Combine again this year.
Yes.
But let's get into the big talk. And I know, there's people that are like, well, I want to hear all these matchups. Listen. You didn't come here for that. You came here for Davante Adams trade talk because, Q, this is a crazy situation. The Steelers, of course, have an obvious receiver need. It's been known since basically they didn't draft one in the first two rounds this past year, and it continues to get louder and louder. They didn't make the trade for Brandon Ayuk over the summer. For some, that wasn't a surprise. But now Davante Adams seems like a different equation because Davante Adams, when Brandon Ayuk was a guy in his prime that the Niners would have wanted to get decent compensation for. But Davante Adams is what, 32. So this is a different spot for the Raiders where he's a franchise type wide receiver, but he's only going to be that for maybe a couple more years. You'd imagine, if that. So I ask you, the Raiders, I believe they said that it's been out there that they want a second round pick. Is there a chance they come down from that and then like Omar Khan can get busy offering like day 3 pick type of situations, or are the Raiders just not going to have any of that?
That's a great question, man, because right now they want a second round pick. They want some extra compensation. They don't want to take on any of his salary either. So they want to make sure that the team that trades for him, picks up his salary as well. So they're trying to play hardball, but you know how this situation goes, man. You're negotiating, right? You negotiate at the highest peak, and then you start to negotiate down. I ultimately think, and I know some have told me that, no, Q, you're wrong. The Raiders can still get a lot for Davante. I think that they're going to have to settle. It might be a third-round pick. I don't think it'll be a day 3 pick. I can see a third-round pick. Maybe some kind of a conditional pick, maybe a third and a fifth, or whatever the case may be. But I also see a scenario where the Raiders might have to take on some of that salary just to go ahead and get it done, because look, he's got a couple years left on his deal. for the Raiders, it's dummy years. Like they were never going to pay him, and he was never going to play on those last 2 years anyway. There's no guaranteed money, but the base salary is like $37 million, and you know that nobody's paying that. So it'd have to be negotiated. So the latest and the greatest, on Wednesday, Antonio Pierce told us that he's nursing his hamstring. He's rehabbing at the facility. They've had conversations. When he gets healthy and he's getting closer, he'll be ready to play. So what that told me is they probably hadn't got the offer that they're looking for yet, and they're trying to drive up that offer, trying to, drive the sense of urgency out there for teams that are looking for him.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've been dealing with a head coach in Pittsburgh that's lying to my face lately. And I'm just like, I can smell this a mile away. Like the Steelers, it's funny. It's also about the Steelers' number one wide receiver, George Pickens. He had the least amount of snaps of the season last week. And Mike Tomlin said, "Oh, it's load management." And I'm like, Mike, we all see that man not running his routes as hard as he could. Just say, hey, you sending the message over here. But hey, right. Head coaches, you gotta, maintain the line. You're protecting the organization. You're keeping us media out. I get it. It's obvious what's going on with the Davante Adams situation. The Steelers are in an interesting predicament because they want a number 2 wide receiver, but Davante Adams also would kind of be the number 1 wide receiver over
George for sure.
If he came to Pittsburgh.
He's still, let me tell you this, he's still really good. Like there's a lot of folks that think that once you hit the 30-year-old, 31, that you start to decline. He's still very talented. Like there's no mistaking his talent. And I said it, and I've said it many times, if he did for some reason decide that, the grass is not greener, I'd rather stay a Raider, the Raiders are better off with him than they are without him. Their offense will not be better without him, right? He makes your offense better. But it looks like that, that's not going to happen.
How much do you think to Davante it matters being on an excellent offense versus just an organization that he thinks will handle things the right way? Because if he's looking for an excellent offense, Pittsburgh Steelers ain't that.
Right.
But granted, there's also talk about Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Do you want to go that place over there where they just fired their head coach? So I don't know about that. The Saints looked like maybe the first couple of weeks were more of a mirage than a sign of how their entire season would go. What does he hold out for? Do you have a vision or at least an understanding of where Davante Adams would prefer to go, if anywhere? I also know that, with the Saints and the Jets, those are also 2 quarterbacks he's very familiar with, in Derek Carr and, of course, Aaron Rodgers.
That's the answer to the question right there, as far as I'm concerned. He wants to be somewhere where he's familiar with the quarterback, where the quarterback is familiar with him, where they're used to getting him the ball. And more importantly, and this is the one big thing that the Raiders have not done. And look, he came to the Raiders in 2022, and we were doing a show, as a matter of fact, when the trade went down. We were in the middle of the show, and all of a sudden you said, I think you got something else you've got to go do. Because this is
that was so funny.
Right. That was just a little while ago. That was 2022. And Chris, he's had 6 quarterbacks that he's played with the Raiders since then. 6. And it wasn't that long ago. So I think he wants a quarterback that knows him, knows how to get him the ball in stride so he can do stuff with it afterwards, get the yak yards, and also a quarterback that's going to feed him the rock. Right now, he's dealing with Aiden O'Connell, who was just named the starting quarterback. He had a little bit of familiarity with him back in 2023 when Aiden O'Connell took over as a starting quarterback, so he knows him. He's worked with Gardner Minshew. I mean, he's just dealt with a lot of inconsistency, and I think that for anything else, he probably wants consistency. And so when I look at the Steelers and I look at their quarterback play, I don't know about Russell Wilson. I've seen 2 organizations give up on him, so I'm not trusting and believing that he's the end-all, be-all, and I know Justin Fields isn't, right? So I don't know if he would be happy in Pittsburgh with that quarterback situation, but that's just my gut feeling.
Yeah, and I feel like Davante Adams is going to have a say where he goes. It's not going to be like the Raiders are like, you're going over here, you're going to like it. Because here's the thing is that if Davante Adams says to the next team, I'm not playing, you don't want to have who's the guy that the Eagles traded to the Jets?
Oh, Hassan Reddick.
It's Hassan. You don't want to have a Hassan Reddick situation on your hand if you're any team. So you're trying to be like, you know what, it'll be a situation. So that's where I'm saying. So if you had to say what's more in favor than not happening, would you say that Davante Adams being traded somewhere else other than the Steelers is more likely than him being traded to the Steelers?
I would say so. I honestly think that the Saints are the leaders in the clubhouse. I know that the easy connection is the Jets because of Aaron Rodgers, but for some reason, I really do believe that the Saints are the ones that are showing the most interest, even if it might not be publicly. right? I know for a fact that there's some folks in the Saints front office that are very familiar with Davante, that used to work in the Raiders front office, that have been sniffing around, let's put it like that, sniffing around Davante, and are very and, they're in the know with what's going on with the negotiations. And, I even had one reach out and say the Raiders are still asking for too much and they don't want to take on any salary. So that came from the Saints. So, I could tell you that. So I think that there's more interest on their part than there is on the Jets. But one of those two places would be an easy answer for the landing spot.
No, that sounds like it makes a lot of sense to me. And plus, I also think that when people say the Steelers are players, like I always put that, like, put an asterisk next to that. They're players and that they made a call to see what the deal is, and they said, hey, like if you're interested, this is what they'd be offering. I don't think Omar Khan's selling the farm for this. I don't think he's giving up a second round pick, like you were saying. If it's something, it may be a third and then like a conditional, pick on day 3 on top of that. And maybe they wouldn't take on all the money, but they would take on some of the, enough of the money to give the Raiders, more comfortable level there. But I'm with you. I think that the Steelers' offensive situation, if Davante Adams is leaving the Raiders because he's been frustrated with the quarterback situation, why would you go to Pittsburgh where, like, hey, Justin Fields hasn't been bad, but he's also not, lighting it up right now. And if you're Davante Adams, you want to be on a team that can light it up. The Saints have kind of cooled off since they started off red hot, but they've also shown the ability to light it up in a game, in multiple games this year. So I'm with you. I think the Steelers aren't the favorites to get Davante Adams. It would take some sharp turn of events, in my opinion, that would shape that. Like if the Saints just were like, you know what, you guys won't budge, we're out. And if the Jets were like, we're out. And then the Raiders were like, we got to get something for this guy. To me, that is like the one path of, if Davante Adams ends up with the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's the reason.
Yeah, I can see that. Like at the end of the day, the Raiders have to do what's best to improve their team, and they got to also be realistic about the situation, right? I mean, you can hold out for a second all you want, but if it's not coming your way, then what do you do? And if I was the Raiders, I'd even be willing to eat some of the salary if I could make that 3 turn into a 2. Right? Just because I know that that's going to help my team more than that 3rd round pick is. But again, that's why they get paid the big bucks. Tom Telesco, that's obviously one of the top things and top priorities on his checklist right now. So we'll see what happens when it's all said and done. But even though Antonio Pierce made it sound like there's a chance that he could still play at the Raiders, I feel like his time in the silver and black is still done.
I feel you on that. It does. And again, head coach has got to toe lines, and that's definitely what's going on there.
So that was part 1 of the conversation right there. Chris Carter and myself. Chris Carter, good friend, host of Locked On Steelers, one of my favorite guys here on the network to do shows with. Real good dude right there. Definitely appreciate him. That was all things Davante Adams, and it doesn't really sound like the Steelers are all in on Davante as much as some outlets will have you believe. But we'll see how it all plays out. Currently, as Antonio Pierce said on Wednesday, Davante Adams is a Raider, never hasn't been a Raider, and when he gets healthy, they're willing to play him or they're ready to play him. So we'll see how that all plays out. But who's going to be throwing the rock on Sunday? For the Raiders, Aiden O'Connell. For the Steelers, Justin Fields, I think. Maybe Russell Wilson. We'll break that down coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, including this one, Z-Biotics, which is pre-alcohol probiotic drink. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. And this is how it works. When you drink alcohol, it gets converted into toxic byproduct into the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that many people think that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces enzymes to break down this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. So if you're getting excited, you're getting fired up, you're ready for this game on Sunday, maybe you go out to the little parties that we have the Saturday night before, maybe at Crust and Rue or maybe at Mandalay Bay at Eye Candy. Make sure you take your pre-alcohol. This is what you do. Step 1, drink pre-alcohol. For best result, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, you got to drink responsibly, all right? Pace yourself. Don't get crazy. Hydrate and get a good night's sleep. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. And maybe that's going to be Sunday for the game at Allegiant. You'll wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. What do you need to do right now? Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LockedOnNFL at checkout. It's all one word. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOn and use the promo code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off. I also want to tell you about Game Time. And, well, Game Time is awesome, right? You want to get all your tickets to any kind of event, sporting event, theater, concerts, whatever the case may be. Game Time is the place for you. They've got a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Basically, it filters out all the fluff, so you get right to the point. Whatever it is you're looking for, bada boom, bada bing, it's going to take it to you. And on top of the app is fantastic. They've got so many different features on the app that makes everything a whole lot easier, including the panoramic view from your seat. So before you buy your tickets, before you buy your seats, you actually get to see what it looks like from your spot. They have the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is always going to be covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. So right now, what you need to do is take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create that account. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word. LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, crossover Thursday style. Chris Carter and myself. He's the host of Locked On Steelers. Of course, this is Locked On Raiders. You know how we get down. Week 6 action on Wednesday. Antonio Pierce announced that Aiden O'Connell will get the start. Something that did not surprise me. Something that I've been talking about since Monday. Thought that he was going to be the starting quarterback. Now he is. So here in segment number 2, Chris Carter and myself, we could compare and contrast all the quarterbacks, right? Aiden O'Connell's going to start for the Raiders, but who's starting for the Steelers? Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. Will both guys be on the roster at the end of the season? Is there a chance that the Steelers trade one of those guys off to some team that needs a quarterback? We discuss all that here in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Again, crossover style, Chris Carter and myself.
Q, let's get into this quarterback situation. The starter was announced Wednesday by the Raiders. I thought that was an interesting move. I mean, you got to, kind of call who your guy's going to be. But it seemed like this was the announcement for the whole season. What's your read on O'Connell being the guy?
I thought it was the right decision. I really did. After the Raiders lost to Denver on Sunday and just Gardner Minshew getting off to a hot start, he was 9 for 9. Then he threw a pick 6 to Pat Surtain. Shocking throw a ball towards Pat Surtain. He's going to do something with it. He did. He took it 100 yards to the house the other way, and it just changed the whole momentum of the game. And you never saw Gardner Minshew kind of get that confidence back. And at the end of the game, Antonio Pierce decided to make the move to Aiden O'Connell. He got in there and quarterbacked them the rest of the way, but it was garbage time. But I came out on the show on Monday and said, hey, I think it's Aiden O'Connell time. One of the big things for Antonio Pierce was want to get this guy in here to start the season off, to get off to a hot start, the first quarter of the season. Well, we're 5 games into the books now, and the Raiders are 2-3 overall. They didn't get off to the hot start. They've been very inconsistent. Offense is trying to find its identity. Gardner Minshew's been okay. Hasn't really used his legs that much to create, where that's where I thought he was going to be able to take an advantage of it. The offensive line wasn't where it needed to be. Minshew could just, run around the yard a little bit, and he hasn't really done that outside of, Sunday he did it twice, picking up first downs against the Broncos. So I did think following that game on Sunday that it was Aiden O'Connell time, and then on Wednesday, AP said he's the guy that gives him the best opportunity to win games. So there you go, Aiden O'Connell, second-year guy. He'll get to start, and we'll see what it looks like.
I certainly will look like. What has been his strength so far that has helped him be a better quarterback this season?
Well, I just think that he has a better understanding of what to be a pro, right? I mean, when he first went in there last year, he was a rookie. He was a little bit. I don't want to say he was chunky, because that's going to sound like he had a lot of weight on, but he did trim up a little bit. He seemed like he's gained some muscle. His footwork looks like it's a little bit better. But then again, like I said, Chris, it's been such a small sample size. He's been in 2 games in mop-up duty, right, so far, in relief for Gardner Minshew. So that was the other reason why I thought it was time to go to Aiden O'Connell. I mean, in 5 games, Minshew's been pulled twice to have Aiden O'Connell come in at the end. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So he literally only finished 3 games. So that kind of told me as well that, it's probably O'Connell time. I just think that he has a better confidence about himself. He's more vocal, as Antonio Pierce has said, than he was last year. He kind of has a better command of the huddle. The one thing is he's obviously a bigger dude than Minshew. He'll stand taller in the pocket, and I do believe he can deliver the ball down the field and hit the deep shot where Minshew's overthrown his guys multiple times. His targets have been off, or his passes have been off target. I just think that O'Connell will have, a better accuracy, just better control of the ball. And the one big concern that I've had when it comes to Aiden O'Connell is the fact that he doesn't really run too much. He doesn't really move around too much, more like a statue in the pocket. But he's starting to roll out a little bit. What we saw in a small sample size, he's rolled out a little bit, moved the pocket just enough. He's never going to be a guy that you're going to mistake for, Josh Allen or anybody, somebody that's just going to run around consistently when need be. But if he can move just a little bit, slide in the pocket, step up in the pocket, and deliver the ball, he probably could be a pretty good quarterback. So, again, we saw a small sample size last season, the last 9 games of the year he started, but this is a new offense. So I just want to see how much he's improved in this new offense since training camp and preseason to where he is going into week 6.
It feels like that's especially important this week against a team like the Steelers that wants to win with their pass rush.
Yeah.
On the flip side here, Q, Justin Fields is QB1. Now Russell Wilson
is he? He wasn't in the pole position
for this week.
Right.
Now, and I say that for this week because Justin Fields has of course been starting. But Russell Wilson was a full participant on Wednesday, and Mike Tomlin did say this week is different than any other week. Now he also said that Justin Fields will practice as QB1 and the team will prepare as if he's the starter throughout this week. But I think with Russell Wilson being a full participant on Wednesday, people have to remember the Steelers went and got Russell Wilson. They signed Russell Wilson before they traded for Justin Fields, and they only traded for Justin Fields after they traded away Kenny Pickett because he was upset about Russell Wilson coming to the team. So with that, I think the Steelers have every intention to look at Russell Wilson at some point and say hey, we got to give this guy a shot. It just might not come this week because I think they want to see, hey, he had a calf injury in camp. He had it again at the start of the season. Literally week 1, we all thought Russell Wilson was starting, and then all of a sudden he's not practicing, and we're like, what's going on there? And Justin Fields has started for 5 games. But with Russell Wilson, now you look at it and you say, okay, now that he's back, you probably give him a week to say, how does he do this week? Wednesday looked fine, full practice. Does he do that Thursday and Friday? And if that happens, maybe he's the number 2 quarterback instead of the emergency number 3 quarterback on Sunday. And then after that, if Justin Fields doesn't light it up against the Raiders, maybe then it's Russell Wilson time. But it's certainly been a very interesting process for the Steelers to go through here, especially considering, none of these quarterbacks were in Pittsburgh last year.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. And when I look at the quarterback position and both quarterbacks, Fields and Russell Wilson, there was members of Raider Nation that wanted the Raiders to go out and acquire those guys because they knew that they needed a quarterback, especially, one that obviously Russell Wilson has had success in his career, and Justin Fields is still young. And so, I just never knew which either one of these guys bring to the table. And I still, observing it from a distance, I feel like that the Steelers had no business losing that game to the Cowboys on Sunday night. And, they did. They found a way to lose it. Just didn't feel like that they made the right plays when they had to. My big question about the Steelers is not even necessarily about the quarterbacks, Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. What about the offense that Arthur Smith is calling? To me, it feels very vanilla, but you're on top of it. You cover the team like a glove. How are you feeling about what Arthur Smith is doing as a play caller?
I thought the Steelers were very conservative for 4 weeks. And then I did a film study for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette on the play calling specifically this past week against the Cowboys. They threw half of their first down plays in the first half. They let Justin Fields to take shots downfield. And there were also plays I think Justin Fields just didn't take that were there. And that will be the thing that hangs up, that puts Russell Wilson back out there. If Justin Fields comes out in this game, I fully anticipate the Steelers to say, hey, you know what? Teams are still run blitzing the offensive line, which is a very young unit. They've had 5 different starting offensive lines in 5 straight games. So they're still figuring things out there. Teams are run blitzing and say, we're not letting you guys figure it out. We're not letting Najee Harris get going. We're forcing your quarterback to have to beat us. And Justin Fields has made plays here and there. He's had some sparks where it's hey, that you can see the potential there, but that consistency of seeing the field, taking what's there, throwing it downfield when there's an opportunity and making the right read. He hasn't shown that game, play in, play out, series in and series out to make him a consistent threat. And so that makes me think that they have been conservative for a reason, and then they opened it up a little bit Sunday night against the Cowboys, and it yielded some results, but it wasn't the results that you wanted. You only got 2 touchdown drives, and they were 3 of 12 on third downs. You cannot be 3 of 12 on third downs with the way that they want to play football. They want the defense to be rested and fully ready to go, and that defense let up 6 points through the first 50 minutes of play, and then at the end of the game, they're playing 80 snaps, and then they gave up 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns. So to me, I think that part of it has been they've been intentionally holding things back, trying to see like, okay, let's ease Justin Fields into things. And then Sunday night, they opened it up a little bit. I would not be shocked if they opened it up the same kind of way against the Raiders this week, where, you know what, wouldn't be shocked. First play is a play action with a shot down the field available to Justin Fields there. Wouldn't be surprised if they, had more of those plays designed up. But, I think this will be the test this week. If Justin Fields can hit on more of those, then maybe we have more of a question. But if he doesn't, and even if the Steelers win 2018 or something like that, I think then you could see a Russell Wilson situation, and it wouldn't be about Arthur Smith. I actually don't think Arthur Smith has been a holding back factor on the Steelers just yet. Again, it's through only 5 games.
Yeah.
I evaluate each week and then, put together my notes as the season continues.
So let me ask you this real quick. What about Russell Wilson? Or I guess maybe not Russell Wilson. We know the trade deadline is week 10. That's November 5th at 1 p.m. Pacific time. The trades have got to be made. Is there any chance that either one of those quarterbacks is shipped out of Pittsburgh?
It's tough. I don't think so, because I think the Steelers are also dealing with massive injuries that we're going to go over in the next segment. I can only imagine, if this team, Kyle Adams, he came in for 2 plays through a 19-yard pass, and they were happy with that. But they got these guys to figure out who they want at quarterback. Now, if some team got really desperate, if the Miami Dolphins said, "Hey, you need, we'll offer a second for Wilson or Fields because we just need somebody because Tua's too banged up," then that's a different story. The Steelers might be like, okay, we'll suffer now to figure that out later. But I don't think either of those quarterbacks is garnering that kind of a trade pick. So with that, I think the Steelers are like, hey, you know what? We'll take the either or of these quarterbacks throughout the rest of the season and trust that someone's going to figure it out. And, and then, give us the opportunity to flip back and forth if, it's more of a hot and cold type of situation there. But that's how I see it playing out right now. I don't think that either of these guys are are guys that they put on the trade block. They're more so, if you come a-calling, you better come correct. And then the Steelers will be able to listen to you.
That makes sense. I know there was, and I'm not even talking about the Raiders. I just know there's a lot of speculation that with some quarterbacks going down, maybe they'd be in the market to move on from one of them. So I thought, might as well ask the expert. Might as well ask Chris Carter.
There you go. I appreciate that.
So that was the conversation about the quarterbacks right there. It sounds like Justin Fields will probably get to start this week. And then maybe Russell Wilson, if Justin Fields doesn't light it up, Russell Wilson gets to start next week. But would not be surprised to see Russell Wilson in the action somehow, some way, if things don't start off right for the Steelers, a team that wants to snap the 2-game losing streak that they're currently on. So coming up in segment number 3, we'll talk about the injuries. The injury bug obviously has hit the Raiders, but that's not the only team. It's not exclusive to the Silver and Black. Injuries have hit the entire league, including the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we'll talk about the players that could be impact players that could be in or out that are currently on the injury report. We'll do that coming up in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor that we have here on the show, which is FanDuel. And right now, if you jump into FanDuel, go to America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel.com, you can get a big return. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out all the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play action. You can get everything that you need on the same page where you place your bets. Currently, the Steelers are 3-point favorites in this game, and being 3-point favorites on the road kind of lets you know how everyone's feeling about the Silver and Black, and especially the uncertainty of the offense and where and how the Raiders are going to score points. So currently, they're 3-point underdogs, but maybe in the middle of the game, the Raiders are cooking with grease, like I like to say, and you feel like, you know what, I'm going to go place a bet right now on the Silver and Black. I think the second half they're going to go and put up 21 points or 20 points or whatever you think it's going to be, and you can go and score you some big-time money. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. All you got to do is go to FanDuel.com. Again, it's America's #1 sportsbook. Here we go, Raider Nation, segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. About to jump into part 3 of the conversation, crossover Thursday style, Chris Carter and myself. We're going to go over the injury report and not talk about every single player, but the significant ones, the key players, the ones that are big-time factors in this game coming up on Sunday. And unfortunately, the list is long, for both teams. There's a lot of injuries across the league for one reason or the other, and it's not exclusive to the Raiders, and it's not exclusive to the Steelers. So we're going to break it down, talk about how these guys that are on the injury report right now could impact Sunday's game. So let's jump into part 3 of the conversation, crossover style, Chris Carter and myself.
I said last week between the Steelers and the Cowboys, it was a CVS receipt of injuries. It's that case again in this one. I mean, it's just vast. I mean, just not even including the limited participant on both sides for the Raiders. You got Davante Adams not participating with a hamstring, Max Crosby with an ankle, Michael Meyer, Jacoby Myers, Colton Miller, Jackson Powers Johnson, Zamir White, all on the Raiders side of things. On the Steelers, Najee Harris, TJ Watt, and Cam Hayward, they were resting. That always happens. But DeMonte KZ, Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, Isaac Seumalo, I guess he's also a rester as well. And DeMarvin Lee out, and Cordero Patterson. And even though Jaylen Warren was a limited participant, he's been considered doubtful for the week. These two teams are hurt up right now. But I guess it's also, this is the pace of the NFL. This is just just the physicality of this game.
Yeah, no, the NFL is hurting right now. Literally, everyone's hurting. These injury reports are long and lengthy, and that's how the Raiders was last week. And yeah, it's lengthy again this week. Davante Adams, he's not going to play. I can tell you that. I mean, he's dealing with the hamstring injury, but he's also dealing with the trade request. So he's not going to play. Max Crosby, he's going to go. Right? Wednesday, he didn't participate. He doesn't need to participate at all throughout the course of the week to be able to go. He missed one game earlier this season. It was against the Cleveland Browns? Yeah, it was against Cleveland, and they found a way to win that game, which was actually pretty unbelievable, but they were able to get it done. He's not going to miss another game, so he'll be out there. Michael Mayer is dealing with a personal issue, so he's not going to be out there. Jacoby Myers, he's got an ankle injury, but listening to him in the locker room on Wednesday, he's going to be good to go. He should be good. It sounds like it's just a Wednesday. They just want to rest him, just precautionary to make sure that he should be good. We'll find out again later on Thursday afternoon about the injury report again Friday, and then of course inactives about 90 minutes before kickoff. But Jacoby Myers, he should be a go. Colton Miller's one that I'm pretty concerned about. He had offseason shoulder surgery. He's been trying to come back. That's their left tackle, and he's kind of been struggling anyway. So to see that he's dealing with the knee and a shoulder both and did not participate, that's concerning. I do think he'll go, but I'm still pretty concerned. And I didn't see Thayer Munford on the injury report this week, and so far, and he's a guy that can slide over to the left tackle spot. So if Colton Miller doesn't go, you can look for Thayer Munford, who was at one point a 7th-round pick out of Ohio State, being the left tackle, but he's more comfortable there than he is at the right tackle spot. So that's one to pay attention to. Jackson Powers Johnson, knee injury, and he didn't participate. That's one to be concerned about as well. He missed all the training camp, all the preseason. He was dealing with a concussion, but he was also dealing with other issues, and he's got a knee injury now. And I remember when he banged up his knee against Denver, and he just kind of tried to walk it off. So I'm assuming because he did finish the game that he's going to be okay. But that's just another injury for the young man, a rookie. So that's something to be concerned about. He's the starting left guard. Zamir White didn't play last week with the groin injury, didn't participate on Wednesday. My expectation that he probably won't play on Sunday. But, again, maybe the groin does heal up and he's good to go. But the Raiders' run game has been pretty non-existent anyway. So whether it's him or Alexander Madison, neither one of those guys have just shined in the running game. Madison's actually been better. Zamir White's still trying to learn the blocking scheme, and he just hasn't really adapted to it very well. So, the Raiders are definitely the walking wounded, and there's a few concerns on there to some major players.
I look at this, and I think that the Steelers have plenty of their concerns as well. Neither team can come into this game thinking, oh, you can just play the way that you want to play, because you're missing a lot of key components here. On the Steelers side of things, they're down. They have TJ Watt, but the whole point of what they wanted to build in there around TJ Watt was they kept Alex Highsmith. They paid him big money to be around. He's missed 3 straight games now. I think it's actually his 4th game that he's missed. Nick Herbig was a guy they drafted last year who played very well, and they were very excited to be the first guy off the bench. The 3 of them in the first 3 games together, they were phenomenal. They were getting after it. They were playing really well. Then Highsmith went down. Herbig had to become a starter against the Colts. That didn't look too good against them. He looked better. He looked good last week, and then he got hurt. And then after he got hurt, TJ Watt had to basically stay on the field the whole game. And then by the end of the game, when the Cowboys were driving, he was gassed because he'd been out there for 70+ snaps. And Now all of a sudden, both of those guys are not playing this game. And so now you have practice squad guys, defensive linemen, rotating out, playing edge. That's going to be a rough spot for the Steelers. And then you also have Cordero Patterson, the guy who's your number 3 running back, not available. Your number 2 running back, Jalen Warren, most likely not available. Though again, he looked all right in practice, but the Steelers have been very careful with him because he's had multiple injuries this year already. The offensive line again has been rotating. Though this might be the first time all season that they'll have the same starters in this game that they did the previous game, which hasn't happened because they've been so banged up. So I think this game is going to come down to who can make the most out of their game plan without the players that they won't have available right now. And the Raiders with Aiden O'Connell and what they want to do on offense, throwing down the middle part of the field. That's the thing that I think the Steelers have kind of messed up on here and there. Granted, I think they did better against the Cowboys. They gave up a couple plays down the sidelines and the outsides of the plays. But I think this is a game where the Steelers, they've wanted to be a team that controls the trenches this year on offense. They haven't. Their offensive line hasn't been able to coalesce. And so that's kind of forced them to win with different ways of Justin Fields making plays with his legs, hitting big plays here and there with his arm. And I do wonder, which defense do you think has the advantage in this matchup? Because, the Raiders defense, that was their calling card last year. Yeah. But with all the injuries that they've had and, other things they're worrying about, they haven't started off red hot this year.
No, they haven't. And they lost Christian Wilkins. He's on IR. He had the Jones-Frank surgery. So who knows how long he's going to miss. He's been a big factor, man. He was the big free agent guy that they got from the Miami Dolphins, $100 million contract that he gave him. And he got 5 games out of it. And so that stinks. That's a big blow. He's really helped out Max Crosby, who's just as advertised always. Max is always going to go 110%. He's going to give you everything he's got and then some. So, you still got to deal with Max. But the Raiders' defense is just riddled with injuries, man. Malcolm Kuntz never got into the regular season, tore his ACL. He was supposed to be a big factor. Christian Wilkins is now out. Marcus Epps on the back end is out with a torn ACL. He's done for the season. One of their starting linebackers, Davante Diablo, hasn't played the last couple games. I mean, they are battered and bruised, man. They are a tough bunch right now. Haven't done a really good job of stopping the run, which I know that's probably music to Najee Harris's ears. Like, okay, here we go. And even Justin Fields, who can use his legs. So I think that the Steelers probably have the advantage when it comes to the defense, but the Raiders still have guys that can get to the quarterback. And if the offensive line is a little leaky or shaky for Pittsburgh, then that could be a factor. To win this game, the Raiders have to create a couple turnovers, in my opinion. They really do, right? And because they're averaging about 59, 60 plays per game max. They need to be up there around the 70, 75, plays to have an opportunity to win a game. Like, they need to sustain some drives. And I think that's another reason why Antonio Pierce made the decision to go with Aiden O'Connell. See if he can get a couple drives per game that are sustained and longer than what the Raiders are normally doing. They normally, their drives aren't very long, even on ones that they're scoring. They've had a couple longer ones, but not consistently. So they've got to find some kind of form of consistency offensively, and they haven't done it. So we'll see if Aiden O'Connell can do it on Sunday.
I think this is the same story for the Steelers. They're looking for something consistent that they can say they do well on offense. They really haven't had that. Again, they've had sparks here and there, but I think they want to develop that identity that they haven't been able to show there. But I think it's the same thing defensively too. Like, the Steelers want to create turnovers. What's crazy is they won the turnover battle last week, 3-1, technically 3-1, but it was really 3-0 because the last turnover was just the Steelers doing the pitch around game at the end of the game when they were just trying to create a miracle. But like, they won the turnover battle last week, and that's what they want to do. They're going to go for that again this week, and that's also kind of why the Steelers, I think, were so conservative. They're like, hey, if we can win the turnover battle, we'll win most of our football games this year. And I think against the Raiders, this might be another opportunity to say, hey, do this against this kind of a team, and we can keep this game in the script that we like to play that gets us wins, and you can get to 4-2 and then look at what you got the week after that. But to me, I think that you bring up a good point. The Raiders, you still got Max Crosby. He's going to play in this game. You still have the pass. The Steelers have to protect the football. They have to not lose on third downs the way they did this last game. And then on the flip side, they have to make it life hard on Aiden O'Connell. They cannot allow this run game to get going, and they need to, if Aiden O'Connell's a statue, they need to, they need to rip him out off that stone ledge there, because I think if you do that, you can disrupt everything the Raiders are doing and then control the pace of the game.
Yeah, it's going to be, it's going to be a lot of similarities. Both teams are going to want to do, a lot of the same things. Like, the Raiders are trying to find themselves offensively. They're trying to get their identity. They're trying to figure out what they do really well. And really, I couldn't tell you that there's something that I could put my finger on and say, this is what they do really well. offensively. It's been so inconsistent. So that's going to be the biggest key, and that's what Aiden O'Connell's going to have to figure out pretty quickly. And not having Davante Adams doesn't help, right? Nobody's offense is better without Davante Adams. So, that's going to be something that he's going to have to figure out. But Brock Bowers is as advertised. Rookie tight end out of Georgia. He's fantastic. He's hard for a linebacker to cover, and he's hard for a corner to cover, right? If you have a linebacker lined up against him, he's too fast for him. You put a corner on him, he's too strong for him. So you pick your poison. That's a good mismatch or matchup nightmare, I should say, that the Raiders are going to look to exploit. They'll figure out who they're going to have on them. Like the Broncos for a lot of the game last week put Pat Surtain on them, and Pat Surtain is fantastic. So you can already imagine how good Brock Bowers is if the Broncos decided, you know what, Pat, you go ahead and take that dude out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting because the Steelers, they like Joey Porter Jr. They've had different guys assigned to tight ends to limit them in games. But hey, this is going to be an interesting matchup. Either way, it's a classic matchup that dates back to the golden age of football in the 70s. We'll break down more aspects of this matchup here on the Locked On Podcast Network with our Friday episodes here on Locked On Steelers and Locked On Raiders. Chris Carter and your boy Q. Q, it was awesome to do another show with you, my friend. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Yeah, man. On Twitter, at your boy Q254. Of course, the Locked On Raiders podcast. You get every single day, just like the Locked On Steelers podcast, every single day, Monday through Friday. We break it down, we smack it up, flip it, and rub it down, right? So we have a lot of fun with this. So check us out again on Twitter, at your boy Q254. And the Locked
rub it down. Oh,
exactly. See how you are. Some things you just can't get away from. So that's how we do. How about you? Where can they find you at?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, TikTok, all the socials at Carter Critiques. You could read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com for all of that, breaking down all your Pitt Athletics and your Pittsburgh Steelers talk there. And find me here, just like you find Q, on the Locked On Podcast Network, on Locked On Steelers and Locked On Raiders, your favorite podcasting apps, and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get either of our episodes all season long and keep up with your Steelers and Raiders.
So there was right there. That was the injury report, and of course a little bit of sprinkling of what it's going to take for either team to get a victory. And I'm really looking at turnovers. The Raiders got to create a couple turnovers, and they've got to be able to protect Aiden O'Connell, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward and company coming to town. Very good defense. Of course, we'll break that down a whole lot more coming up on Friday's show. What is it going to take? We'll get back to calls and texts. We'll have news and notes. We'll have another injury report, so maybe the Raiders start to get a little bit healthier. We'll find that out a little bit later on this afternoon, but we'll definitely finish off the week really strong. We'll give you the keys to victory and send you off into the weekend, headed into Week 6 action at Allegiant Stadium, Raiders and Steelers. It's a classic, right? It's a throwback, and hopefully it has a throwback style feel to it come Sunday. But we've got one more show to do. We'll close out the week strong tomorrow here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.